Hello, we welcome you to this Bible study of the Banking Blessings Ministry. My name is Goodluck Ofebu, and this is my wife.
Obi Ofebu.
We welcome you today to the beginning of a series on the story of Ruth. We call it the Grand Blessing of Ruth. Ruth was the Moabite lady that married into an Israeli family, and God blessed her immensely because she became the grandmother of David, the second king of Israel, and of course a great grandmother in the lineage of Christ.
A great grandmother of David.
Yeah, we talked about her a little bit when we studied the genealogy of Christ, but today we'll spend more time in this series. We'll spend more time. It's going to be a 3 to 4 Bible study series. At the beginning of the series, which is today's Bible study, we are going to look at the events that brought her into the Israeli family. We'll learn about an Israeli family that lived in Bethlehem, but because of hardship of life, they decided to move to Moab to seek better life. The family moved, and there a lot of things happened that changed the makeup of their family. We'll see the details later on. And it was during this period that Ruth joined the family and eventually returns to Bethlehem with her mother-in-law Naomi. And when they returned to Bethlehem, Naomi had lost all the members of her family that went to Moab with her, and she came back with Ruth. So she was very bitter about losing people, but we'll see that even in her bitterness, she still submitted to God. And this will be the inaugural lesson of our study of the life of Ruth. Everything we'll study today is from Ruth chapter 1. We may make reference to other Bible passages that are relevant to the study. Honey, do you have any opening statements?
We'll just, like you're going to say, nothing much except we are going to examine as we go through this. While examining the life of Ruth and Naomi, Naomi up to some point and then Ruth all the way, let us pay attention to not just to the story but some of the lessons.
Yes, obviously.
These activities and their life bring to us in present day. Yes, obviously we'll pay attention. We will focus on the lessons because I believe the story was blessed in the Bible so that we can learn from it, and we'll be looking for those lessons. Well, we'll start with the Israeli family. The man of the family was called Elimelech with his wife Naomi. They had 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion. They lived in Bethlehem in Judah, but this was during the time of the Judges, and at some point there was a great famine in the land, and things were not going well for them, so the man decided to move his family to Moab. They moved to Moab to seek better life for his family, to escape the severe famine that was going on in Israel. Let us read about this in Ruth chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. The book of Ruth chapter 1, we are reading from the New King James Version. Verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land. And a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to dwell in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, the name of his wife was Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion, Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah.
And they went to the country of Moab and remained there.
Well, to understand what happened, we show here a map of that region during the Bible times, during the Old Testament times. And this map shows the makeup of the region just after the reign of it's just after the Israelites had settled to the west of the river Jordan. It shows here the Israeli area was divided into two. There was Judah, so this must have been after the reign of Solomon. Actually, this map is from that time. It's not exactly from the time of Ruth. Ruth lived long before Solomon. But after the reign of Solomon, Israel was divided into two. Solomon had this area called Judah. Well, not really Solomon. He's the person that he handed over to Judah. Yeah, his descendant was in charge of Judah, and then the rest of the area, the rest of Israel, was under a different kingdom, a different leadership. But what is important here is their contiguous relationship with Moab. The only thing that separates Israel from Moab is the Dead Sea. Of course, we say the only thing, but it's a large expanse of water that separates Israel from Moab. Elimelech and his family were living in Bethlehem, and from Bethlehem they moved to Moab. And this was not a small move. We include here another map that kind of gives an idea of how far they traveled. They lived down here in Bethlehem, which is not shown on this map, but Jerusalem is slightly north of Bethlehem. The only road, there's a connecting road, so they likely moved up to Jerusalem and then used this small road here, or this east-west road, to cross the river and then join the King's Highway that took them down to Moab. The point of all that is that if you look at it and try to scale it, you find a distance of approximately 100 miles. And at that time, that wasn't a small travel. This man traveled a long distance in order to find better conditions for his family. That is important. We'll come to that from time to time. But the thing, in fact, we're already there actually, I said from time to time. The thing is, when you are faced with problems, obviously the first thing you do is you pray and have faith that God is going to intervene and lead you to a solution to that problem. But you cannot just pray and sit. You have to do things. You have to face the situation and look at what you can do at the human level. The reason that is important is that it is through what you do that you place yourself in a position to receive God's intervention. Their relocation to Moab is actually what placed them in position to receive the changes that God wanted to bring to their life. And we'll see those changes by the time we go through the series.
Yeah, this is important, explaining the situation at the time that they moved. One other thing that was in place then was that God said that the people of Israel should not marry from Moab.
Okay.
It was against God's wish and intention. He instructed them not to intermarry with Moabites.
Yeah.
And whatever led Elimelech to take his family and 2 unmarried sons to Moab must have been in the agenda of God's plan. Because there were so many things that could have made them, not to go.
Yes.
There was tension between Israel and Moab.
Yes.
Even though Israel may have conquered them at some point, there was still tension.
Yeah.
Because of how the Moabites did not let the children of Israel to cross through Moab to the place they're living during their exodus from Egypt. So they were neighbors, but they were not friendly neighbors.
That's very important. In fact, the second lesson in this series is going to look at previous interactions between Israeli people and Moabites. We'll look at their history, look at some of these incidents, and try to understand. Yes, they were neighbors, but there is more to their being neighbors. And then that may help us see the wonders and maybe understand a little better God taking a Moabite and a Moabite woman, and in fact making her the one of the grandmothers of the Messiah. So God had a plan there. And this family, of course, that plan was implemented through this family, and they placed themselves in a position to receive this intervention of God, or to fulfill God's designs by making this move from Bethlehem to Moab. Of course, as we said earlier, it's a long journey. A lot of things happened when they got there. And we look at it was extraordinary, because soon after they reached, the Bible didn't tell us when, Elimelech died. They didn't stay long before this happened. So the woman was alone with her two sons, Melon and Kilion. And then they went ahead and married two women from Moab, two Moabites. As we just heard earlier, this really was supposed to be a forbidden marriage. But let's leave that aspect of it for now. Two of the ladies were named Orpah and Ruth. The Bible didn't tell us who was married to who. In fact, I see this to be one indication that it's not really, Melon and Kilion were not really an important part of the life of Ruth, even though Ruth was married to one of them. We don't know who. But the important thing is they married them, then they lived for a total of 10 years from the time they arrived to the time that the two boys, the two men died, the two sons of Naomi. So now Naomi had lost her husband and had lost her two sons, but she was left with two daughters-in-law. Yes, this says sisters-in-law. That it was daughters-in-law, two daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. Let us read about this in Ruth chapter 1, verses 3 to 5.
Ruth chapter 1 verse 3. Then Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left and her two sons. Now they took wives of the women of Moab. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth, and they dwelt there about 10 years. Then both Melon and Kilion also died. So the woman survived her two sons and her husband.
Well, at about that time, Naomi learned that things were improving. The economic conditions, farming conditions, this famine that they run away from, that conditions were improving in Israel, in Bethlehem, from where they left. So she decided to return to Judah. She set out with her daughters-in-law. I don't know how we wrote sisters-in-law here, but anyway, she left with her daughters-in-law, and on her way to return to Judah, she felt that her stay in Moab had whatever it's worth, that it's time to bring it to an end and return to Bethlehem. So she set out to return. Let us read about this. Ruth chapter 1 verses 6 to 7. And if you have a comment to make before reading, that's fine.
I think it's just normal.
Yeah.
You know, things were improving from where she came from. And I actually think that the land of Moab will hold a lot of bad memories for her, having lost her husband and 2 sons then.
Yeah.
Staying on there alone. We don't know the reasons apart from that conditions were improving in Israel. So she decided to return.
Yeah.
But her decision to return, as we go through the teaching from Ruth, we will see that it's something that is remarkable.
Yeah.
This particular decision that she took to return from where she came.
Yeah. Okay.
Then Ruth chapter 1 verse 6, then she arose with her daughters-in-law that she might return from the country of Moab. For she had heard in the country of Moab that the Lord had visited his people by giving them bread. Therefore she went out from the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-law were with her, and they went on the way to return to the land of Judah.
Well, this is when Naomi's character came out, her attitude to people. At this point, she realized that her daughters-in-law she felt that her daughters-in-law didn't really have a future with her, and that their future, that they would do better somewhere else. And she explained this to them. She said, look, the best thing is for the 2 of you to return to your parents and find a new life for yourself. There is no point going with me. I'm too old to remarry, and even if I remarry and had a baby today and they happen to be male, you're not going to wait for them to grow up before you get married. So she was willing to release them. In fact, she was releasing them to go. She told them, please go. They refused. They cried and said no, they will stay with her. She persuaded them even more, and then Orpah, the one named Orpah, was persuaded, so she kissed her mother-in-law and left. The mother-in-law put more pressure on Ruth to leave. Before we get to that, let us look at her offer to her daughters-in-law, her offer to release them so that they could seek a new life.
Yeah. Ruth chapter 1 verse 8. And Naomi said to her daughters-in-law, go, return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you, as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant that you may find rest, each in the house of her husband. So she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept. And they said to her, surely we will return with you to your people. But Naomi said, turn back, my daughters. Why would you go with me? Are there still sons in my womb, that they may be your husbands? Turn back, my daughters, go, for I am too old to have a husband. If I should say I have hope, if I should have a husband tonight, and should also bear sons, would you wait for them till they were grown? Would you restrain yourselves from having husbands? No, my daughters, for it grieves me very much for your sakes that the hand of the Lord has gone out against me. Then they lifted up their voices and wept again, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. And she said, look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law.
Well, so Naomi put pressure on Ruth, and it was at that point that Ruth made her own offer. Ruth showed her spirit of sacrifice and her compassion. Remember, Naomi came to Moab with her husband and 2 sons, and had lost the husband and the 2 sons. And it was after losing the husband that they married Ruth, and then Ruth was there when the 2 sons died. So there was reason for somebody to have sympathy, and I think it was a great sacrifice, an act of compassion that made Ruth offer to her, tell her mother-in-law and say, look, my life is with you. I want to stay with you. Don't ask me to leave. I don't want to leave you. I want to stay with you. Let us read about this in Ruth chapter 1 verses 16 to 18 if you want to make a comment.
It's also something to note that Ruth, despite the odds that were against widows at this time, would still choose to remain a widow by not leaving to go and remarry. Because widows were stigmatized, they were usually poor, poverty-stricken, they were looked down upon, and that was why, it was very important that, if you remember, they said God takes care of the widows, and the fatherless. There's a special group of people that the society did not really take care of. So for Ruth to choose to remain a widow, because Naomi had no other son that was going to marry her. And Naomi was not going to marry her. But if she left, she would have a chance of rebuilding her life. But she chose to remain with Ruth. Not knowing what the future
with Naomi.
With Naomi, not knowing what the future held for her. So it's not just an act of compassion, it's an act of loyalty and faithfulness. Compassion, yes, is there, but she sees her life, strewn together with that of Naomi, as it would have been if her husband was
survived, remained alive.
Yes,
that is, she saw herself as part of that family. That her life was with Naomi. And she didn't want to change it. She saw that God had assigned her a place in life, and that she was
willing to sit and defend that place.
And find out why and do what she could through her membership in that family. Well, let us read about it. Her statements to her mother-in-law was quite it's quite eventful.
Ruth chapter 1 verse 16. But Ruth said, entreat me not to leave you, or to turn back from following after you. For wherever you go, I will go, and wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts you and me. Verse 18. When she saw that she was determined to go with her, she stopped speaking to her.
When Naomi saw that Ruth was determined to go with her, she decided that she wasn't going to talk about it anymore.
She thought she couldn't persuade Ruth otherwise.
So this really is how Ruth joined the family. The next stage is when they returned to Bethlehem. Naomi returned to Bethlehem with Ruth, and there people saw her, were very excited, at the same time asking, she must have changed a lot, because they said, oh, can this be Naomi? And then at that point she told them that that God had treated her with bitterness. That she left Bethlehem full. She had a husband and two male children, but she returns to Bethlehem empty. She didn't have the husband and the two children anymore. She asked them to change her name. Instead of calling her Naomi, which means pleasant, she asked them to call her Mara, which means bitter. She was trying to tell them, look, God had visited me with bitterness, and there is no point calling me pleasant. Let us read about this, Ruth 1:19 to 22, and you can make a comment before we read.
I think if we're just looking at what could have gone on in a woman's life to want to change her name from pleasant to bitter, and for her to demand so, it must have been losing one's husband and 2 children. And had Ruth not agreed, clung to her and said, I'm returning with you, she would really have come back really, really empty. With her husband and no child.
Yeah.
But for Ruth, she would have been emptier than she's talking about.
Yes.
But the events that made her want to, swear and change her name, to bitter, were things that were really traumatic.
Yes.
In her life.
Yes.
So, from Ruth chapter 1 verse 19, now the 2 of them went until they came to Bethlehem. And it happened when they had come to Bethlehem that all the city was excited because of them. And the women said, is this Naomi? But she said to them, do not call me Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. I went out full, and the Lord has brought me home again empty. Why do you call me Naomi, since the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has afflicted me? So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law with her, who returned from the country of Moab. Now they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest.
Yeah. Well, let us look again at Naomi's assessment of her experience in Moab, her sojourn in Moab. As she pointed out, she left Bethlehem with her husband and 2 sons and returned to Bethlehem without these 3 people. And because of that, she considered herself empty on return. She was definitely full when she left, but she considered herself empty on return. And yes, she had Ruth, but she probably saw Ruth as a kind of consolation, that Ruth was there to console her. So while she likely appreciated having Ruth, she didn't fully count, and if she knew what would happen several years later, she would have counted Ruth firmly in her equation to determine whether she was full or empty or coming back.
She would have known that she was very, very,
very, very full. But of course, she didn't know. She didn't know that. So for her, she had a daughter-in-law that I believe she appreciated having, but she was clearly bitter, and she should have been bitter. There is no doubt about it. But something remarkable we need to understand here is how she submitted to God, how she saw all of this as the hand of God. Even in bitterness, it didn't prevent her from being bitter. She was bitter, and she said it so bitter that she couldn't stop talking about it. She told people to change her name. But at the same time, she recognized everything that happened to her as something coming from God, maybe punishment for her. But she said, let us look at verse 21 again, because it had some statements that I think emphasize her submission to God despite her bitterness. This first, she said, the Lord has brought me home again empty. So her coming home was an act. God brought her home. God took her to Moab and brought her back, irrespective of what happened. Then she said, the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty, she called God, has afflicted me. So she recognized all of this as something from God, and probably I believed that, maybe I did something wrong. That's why God has given me this much bitterness. I know this is from God. I am taking it as from God. I'm not happy about it. God, if you are listening, know that I'm not happy. I'm bitter. But I know that this is from you. So I'm going to take it because it is from you and whatever it means. And at that time, this was quite prophetic, because she could not have known
what it all meant. And I think her declaration that this is from God and she was going to accept it from God was kind of, it suggested that she probably had a little bit understanding, prediction of what will happen eventually, which of course we know that she didn't have. It was just her faith in God.
Yeah, I think it's more of a submitted life.
Yes.
It's more of a submitted life.
Yes.
She felt God was, afflicting her bitterly and badly, and for God to do all these things, or allow these things to befall her.
Yeah.
Yet she was submitted.
Yes.
If you look at recent day times, people will say, my enemies are at it again. The devil is dealing with me. Satan has done this, that. We attribute all those things without really knowing what the Lord, that was her perception of what she was going through.
Yes.
At that time.
Yes.
But she still said, the Lord has brought me home.
Yeah.
Empty.
Yeah.
The Lord took me out and the Lord has brought me home.
Yes.
But to her, it was empty.
Yes.
She didn't know what, the bit about God bringing her back, taking her out and bringing her back is okay. Because those are what happened.
Yes.
But she didn't know about the other part, which is the future.
Yes.
Which she was looking at as empty.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that brings me to what I was saying, about the remarkable thing that she went back. Oftentimes, when we fail, very, very few people will go back. You see, they were rich.
Yeah.
They not rich as per possessions.
Yes.
She had her husband, she had her children.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes when we perceive that we are worse off after leaving a place, very, very, very difficult for people to go back to that place.
Yeah.
But it's an act of submission.
Yes.
That she went back to the same place where, in quotes, you will say that will see her as a failure.
Yes. Yes.
But she went back there. And what does that say to me? That we shouldn't always see, failure shouldn't be your downfall.
No.
Failure, should be something to spur you on to look ahead to the future.
Yes.
Because as we'll see later, you will see the actions and all that she started taking to see that, she takes her place or she rises again and stuff like that. But it's very important that we don't see anything that comes to us as the end of it all. And therefore we run away from where people will mock us, where people will stigmatize us and all that. If she did that, then she would not have been able to fulfill the scriptures or play her part in fulfilling the scriptures.
Yeah, we probably will not be looking at the story today.
Yes.
The reason, the action she took, going back to Bethlehem, was a key step in this whole process.
So the only time we actually fail and really fail is when we refuse to get up.
Yeah.
That's just what this is telling me, because I don't know if I were to be in her shoes at that time, whether I will be able to go back to where I think people are going to mock me and say all kinds of things. But she did that. And going back, she now brought along with her fulfillment of the scriptures.
Yeah, fulfillment of what God wanted to accomplish, which we will see more. But I think what she did was an act of submission, of recognizing that, okay, yes, all of this happens, but I still have God.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get up, go back to where I came from. Things are better there. Let's see whether things will improve when we get back. So that's having faith that, yes, you have God, and yes, you are in hardship, and you have every right to be bitter. That is one of the things that happens in hardship. But in your bitterness, still remember, like Naomi did, that yes, you have God, and you should not stop. You have to keep walking.
And that the hand of God is in whatever
Yes.
Is happening to you. God, he may not, you see, God is not a God that is wicked or God of, but if God always has our back,
Yes.
he knows what we are going through.
Yes.
And for him to allow it, means it's in the line of things he has.
Yes, there's a reason
for us. Yeah.
Well, so that brings us to what did we learn today? We learned about Naomi's travel to Moab with her husband and 2 sons, and returned from Moab without her husband and 2 sons, but with a compassionate and loyal daughter-in-law. Naomi, we learn about Naomi's bitterness, and we know the reason for that. She suffered a big loss in Moab, so she had reason to be bitter. But in her bitterness, she still submitted to God. In her bitterness. And not only that, she still was committed to doing what she could, that which was the reason for going back to Bethlehem. So things are better there, let me go back there. And there I'll see what God has for me. I remember that expression from David. So she was still committed to doing what she could at the human level. And this is one important lesson we will learn from this Bible study series. Not this one today, but we will learn that the human effort, we see the beginning of it here, that human effort places you in position. In the case of Naomi, it was a human effort that placed her in position to receive God's intervention. And all of these were happening in her life. Her going to Moab was human effort. Her returning to Bethlehem was also trying to do things that she could do. And in all of this process, she was actually positioning herself to receive God's intervention. And this is a lesson that we should never forget. In whatever kind of hardship, just keep doing what you can and keep having faith in God.
Yeah, and really listening to your spirit and communing with God. How you say, how do we know? But because she kept referring to God brought me and the Lord did.
Yes.
Which means she knew it. There was the hand of God in it.
Yes.
Okay. So it's that obedience. Because the Bible says that when our obedience is complete, then we'll see God move for us in our lives.
Yes.
First of all, her husband said, let's go. Remember, there was tension between them and Moab, and the nation of Moab.
Yeah.
She could have said, what are we going there to do? We are not in friendly terms with these people. We are not that. She followed her husband.
Yes.
When she lost everything, she said, let me go back to my people.
Yes.
Things are better there. She could have also have disobeyed God. If she was not willing to go back, then Ruth will not come with her.
No.
Ruth will not come with her. Ruth will stay with her in the land of Moab.
Yeah.
So these things are all in obedience to the things that God has, lined up for her. Yeah. And as for Ruth, what she did, we learn from her the heart of sacrifice and the power of love.
Yes.
The power of love. The power of that kind of love is what God equates to worship.
Yes.
And that's what God wants us to do with Him. Cling to Him no matter what, at all costs. Even if things of this world are trying to move us away, we should cling to Him. And we will see that God honored this faithfulness, this loyalty, and this love.
Yes.
It didn't matter that she's a Moabitess, but God saw a fulfillment of God's principle, and God will bless it any day.
Yes.
So that power of love, is what we see, and loyalty and faithfulness. I call it's worship. Everything I see from about Ruth is worship.
Yes.
And that's the way God wants us to relate with Him.
Yes. Okay. And
that brings us to the end of this first Bible study in the series on Grand Blessing for Ruth. We thank you for participating in our Bible studies. We always like to remind you that all our previous Bible studies and all the ones we will do in the future are accessible through our website at bankingblessing.org, bankingblessing.org. Thank you for participating with us, and we pray that from our Bible study series and from all your contact with Christian activities that you will learn something that will make a positive impact on your life and bring you closer to God's purpose for your life. Thank you, and God bless you.
Until next time.
Yeah.
God bless you.